Can you see the way the hair is not shrinking back while I'm braiding? My fingers are easily combing through it because it is completely dry. Welcome to my method of dry braiding to avoid shrinkage. So I just took out my hair. I styled it for church. So I'm going to put it like this. That's just gel that didn't dry. Okay. I'm going to put them in sections and I'm going to braid it. I'm going to do shade. Yeah, you probably have an idea of what I want to do already. So I'm going to do this. This should probably work and make my hair braiding go faster because it's stretched, right? So yeah, let's see. I'm starting with this section because I'm watching something on my laptop. Hopefully the humidity doesn't catch up on me. Wish me luck. This, my friend, is what I call dry braiding. Braiding your hair without no ounce of moisture, no oil, no liquid, no cream, nothing, no moisturizer. Okay, I discovered this method just by chance. As they say, necessity is the mother of inventions, because if you have coily hair or you've dealt with coily hair, fussy hair, you know that when the hair is damp, it is super coiled and it shrinks. It shrinks down to the shortest length it can get to, which makes braiding your hair by yourself quite difficult. At least in my experience, that has been the problem. So I had done a video before where I asked for advice and nobody commented, and then I thought, I would buy a hair dryer and blow dry my hair before braiding or doing cornrows, and the hair dryer that I bought turned out to be of very poor quality and the fuse blew out on me. That is a story for another day. And so after threading my hair, that is African threading, I loosed it and I thought the hair was stretched out. This would be also a good method, and so I didn't oil it. I tried to add some oil to every strand before braiding on the other side, but I could see that before I got to the end of the line, it was shrinking. So this works very beautiful for me. Now let me tell you a very beautiful story about this hairstyle that I'm doing. I went to boarding school for the most part of my secondary school education. The first time I went to boarding school, I was 10 years old, and it was a beautiful thing or a very practical thing that the school where I went to didn't allow us to have long hair for the first 3 years of our secondary school education. So my parents had to cut my hair. I remember the day they were cutting the hair, people were gathered because my hair has always been this thick. I take this from my father. I think even now in my adult years, I don't have that kind of thick hair I used to have as a child. Anyway, back to the story. I enjoyed my low cut for first 3 years of my schooling in high school. And then when I got to high school, my father got a job in the capital, and so we had to change schools. So I went to the boarding house and I discovered that they also, like my former boarding house, used to give weekly hairstyles to the girls. It was an all-girls school, so we were given weekly hairstyles to braid. We were not allowed to thread. For those of you who don't know, in Africa, we thread our hair and carry it as a hairstyle, and we also braid our hair. Today, it's more of braids, but back in the day, it was cornrows. You just styled it, So in this particular boarding school where I attended for, I think, 2 years to finish my high school education, we were not allowed to braid any kind of style that would allow the hair to fall over our face, right? So we would do shade, which is this one that I'm doing, and we would do all back cornrows, or we would do what we call, I think it's called pineapple globally, but we call it chuku because we took it from the Yoruba tribe, and we did that. Those were the three styles I think that were, and we had what we called two steps. Two steps was, I think I'll put the pictures as I'm speaking. Two steps, you divided the hair horizontally into half and you braided. You had the first cornrows down to the back and then you had another cornrows on top. So those were the only styles we were allowed. Now, when I asked why we couldn't have hair that came forward that fell over our faces, we were told a story, and the story goes like this. So because it was an all-girls school, the principal was a woman, and then the vice principal was a man at the time. And then it happened that there was this girl who had indulged in some misdemeanor, or she broke one of the school rules. And back in the day, we were rebuked or reprimanded at the assembly, in front of the entire school. So I think today's generation would say that is shaming or whatever, but that was the norm those days, where you were called in front of the entire school and your sins were mentioned and you were used as the scapegoat, and they told the school, this is what this girl did and we don't tolerate that. Let this be a lesson to you. The next person that does that, you're also going to have that. And those days, discipline was very, very important. It was a high requirement from we students. It was such a high requirement that even your parents didn't want you to misbehave or to have such an experience, because if you were called and reprimanded in front of the school, what would follow next would be a suspension. In fact, sometimes you were being brought out in public to be rebuked because you were about to be suspended, meaning you would be sent home, and then if you did something worse later on, you would come back. Then after you came back from your suspension, you would be expelled. Those days, students with such records found it quite difficult to finish their secondary school education because you would not be accepted in any other schools. We come from a generation where one egg spoils the rest, or one apple spoils the entire apple in the basket. That was the norm. That was the axiom back in the day, So this child was called to the podium where the principal was, and the principal rebuked her, reprimanded her, called out whatever her offense was, and the lady or the young girl had the temerity to flip her hair to the principal, like, how girls do, like, I don't care. And so her hair flipped, and the principal was livid. She couldn't tolerate that insolence. So she had the child whipped, and from that day she banned any hairstyle that allowed people to braid their hair, or girls to braid their hair to the front. That was a story I was told. And for me, it made me, it was kind of shocking, or will I say funny at the same time, because it always reminded me of, the story of the princesses and their mother, like Snow White and her mother, who didn't want to compete with the child's beauty, where she was always asking her mirror who was the most beautiful, and our principal at the time, the said principal, she was a very pretty lady, but because of her religious beliefs, she didn't have her hair. She never had her hair out. And so they said when the child did that, she took off her scarf and showed her that, I also have hair. You think hair is everything that beauty entails? No, but we do respect one another. I respect myself. I respect my religion. So if I wanted to flaunt hair, if it was a matter of flaunting hair, I also have hair to flaunt. And that was how we were banned from ever having to have hair in front. So that is why we were always having our hair at the back. So I was doing this hairstyle, I thought of this hairstyle and I thought of that story, and I know a lot of you have that experience. Let me know what were your hair experiences when you were in boarding school or in secondary school in general. Did you cut your hair, or are you in a private school? Do we still have hairstyles for kids to go to school with, and we were not allowed extensions. I see today kids wear extensions to some private schools, wear the hairstyle, color their hair. The times have changed, Personally, I don't really make a big deal of it because I believe it does not affect the learning process. Rather, it gives kids a room or a medium to express themselves in their hairstyles and things like that. But on the other hand, for us, it forged discipline. It was a way of disciplining us, making us disciplined rather, and it was also a way of fostering friendships because we braided one another's hair when we were in boarding school. Today you would braid Fatima's hair, tomorrow Morenike would braid your hair, next tomorrow to be Amaka. And during those periods, we had that bonds, those friendships being formed while you were braiding one another's hair. In fact, the last week of school before we went on holidays, we used to braid each other whatever hairstyle that we wanted, to go home looking all nice, looking all fancy and kinky. Sorry, not kinky. all fancy and well made for our parents, so that we could enjoy at least the first 2 weeks of holidays at home without having to bother with our hair care. So guys, this is how I'll be making my cornrows from henceforth. Let me know in the comment section, did you try it? Is that how you braid your hair? Or do you use the hair dryer to blow dry your hair before you braid? And if you went to one of these boarding schools, what were your favorite hairstyles? Okay, and if you're a mother or an aunt, what is the norm now in boarding schools across West Africa? Do we still give our children hairstyles? Is it just the norm in public schools? I would really love to hear from you, and hope you are inspired to continue growing your hair, loving your hair, listening to your hair more especially. Your hair does speak, so this is me finished with the cornrows, and I wanted to put something in front, but by this point I was already tired. I was really tired, so I just did chunky twists, which I ended up losing and styling as loose twists, but it was nice. It was a wonderful experience, and I must say you need a lot of stamina. You need a lot of stamina and endurance in your hands to braid yourself. It's not an easy feat. It's not for everybody. There are people who do it better than I do, but this is the best that I could do for myself, and I really enjoyed it. I think I carried this hairstyle for 3 weeks. That is why it's quite embarrassing that I've not uploaded it. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next hair story episode. Don't forget to like, to subscribe. If you think it will be an interesting story to someone else, please do consider sharing with them, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.